Well, Christmas is a great holiday. We all love Christmas. Santa Claus, he's real. We know this to be true. But in the Flaming Lips camp, Halloween is far more important. Of course, most of us know about these days about the Halloween parade and the March of 1,000 Skeletons. But what you don't realize is that every year, whenever they're in town, which is most time, we make a special effort to be here in Oklahoma, Wayne puts up a circus tent, and he creates something for the neighborhood kids that is usually mind-bogglingly frightening. And this year is a special year because it's the 500-pound brain. And your job when you meet the 500-pound brain, you can't just get candy. You got to go up to the 500-pound brain, and you have to ask it a question.
There's an element of this is loud and it's crazy and it's as if you get to walk in and it's something akin to the Wizard of Oz or something, but it's happening on your block. And the kids get to ask the 500-pound brain any question. It's the smartest entity in the universe. Of course, it's a 500-pound human brain. It's the biggest brain you're ever going to encounter. And you can ask it any question you want.
Other than math. Don't ask it math. It gets mad when you ask math.
It doesn't really answer. I have this mechanism set up to where it screams some distorted, horrible stuff. And of course, I interpret what the brain says. I'm the mad scientist who knows what the brain says. And we'll get, 50 or 60 drunk people over there, and they'll ask it absurd things, and a lot of kids will ask it math questions, or they'll ask it meaningless things like the meaning of life or whatever.
You ask it a question, and you will get an answer from the all-knowing 500-pound brain. And it will satisfy you. And then you'll be doubly satisfied when you get your candy.
Well, for me, Halloween has always been, Halloween is really only really great when you're little because you get to embrace this idea of being scared and scaring other people. And it's not even really about dealing with death. It's really just about dealing with scary monsters and guts and gore and blood and all that stuff is it's fascinating. It's fascinating even for adults. But in the neighborhood, when I moved into the neighborhood, I realized there was a lot of kids in the neighborhood that simply didn't know what Halloween even meant because their families were so devastated by crack and poverty and all this. They didn't celebrate Halloween. They didn't have costumes. They didn't have candy. They didn't have pumpkins to carve. It simply was just another day. And I wanted to have people come by my house so I could dress up and I could give people candy. But I also realized once I started to do this thing, first it started on my porch, then moved to my yard. Now it's in my giant part of my yard. I started to see how the kids from around the neighborhood, they would just come up and want to get involved and say, what is this stuff? You've got this dead guy on your porch and his guts are out. And what is that? I could see where, in lieu of everything else that's boring going on that day, me having some smoke machines and strobe lights and a dead guy on my porch is pretty exciting for them, And I saw even in the early 90s of how just this idea of them coming from around the 4 or 5 blocks where I live and being involved in me setting up this thing, was a great treat for them. But these kids have showed me a thing, and they don't know they showed me this, but they showed me this thing that, even though they're involved in it, sometimes it takes us a couple days and these same kids will show up for 2 days before Halloween or whatever, even though they're involved in it, and it's completely contrived. When I say I have a 500-pound human brain that's going to speak to you and tell you all the answers of the world, they know that it's not really. They know it's just a big blow-up thing, and I've got a mechanism there where it can speak to you, and I have something that I press, and smoke shoots out of it, and there's strobe lights, and they help me plug all these things in. They know that it's not real. And yet, when they come into the tent on Halloween night, it still works. It still scares the hell out of them. They still let the thing that we've created have this desired effect on them. And that's what we want. As we go through our life, we have to be curious and we want to find out, how's this thing work? But if everywhere we go, we just take the magic away by finding out how things work, before you know it, you're 40 years old and the world's just a boring, dumb, evil place because there is no real magic, But these kids sort of show you that you can know how it works and you can enjoy its effects. And so we want that. We want that from the world. But a couple of kids in my neighborhood have real questions, and they'll sometimes come up to the 500-pound human brain, and since it knows everything, and they believe it knows everything, we'll just simply ask, where's my mother? And that's where you realize this is all fun, and we've created all this illusion, but that's the devastation that goes on in my neighborhood over there, And that's why when I can do this thing that is fun, those kids don't have anybody there that's doing anything like that. And so, yeah, it's a big deal. I wish everybody did some crazy version of the 500-pound human brain, and there was one of those on every block, But there's not. And then I have to answer to this, this 5-year-old, as if the 500-pound brain would know where his mother is. And I don't know what to say, You say, I think your mother's fine. She thinks about you all the time. She wants you to have fun. Here's some candy. I mean, I don't know, It kind of is it's a surprise. But I think that's what makes it so great, Is it's not, I'm getting my kicks by getting to set up a bunch of stuff in my yard, but those kids, I think it has an effect on them. And they're not little kids for very long, The difference between someone being 5 and someone being 8 is a pretty drastic thing. But for me, it's just a difference of a couple of years, and I've not really changed hardly at all. But I can see sometimes in them a big difference, So I don't know. And I hope that I'm not the only person in their life that sets up things and says, look, you can make your own magic. You just got to plug stuff in and pretend like it's something else, But I don't know, Hopefully they'll run into a bunch of people in their life, and I'll just be one weirdo on their block, I don't know.
It needs a face on it now, doesn't it? Yeah. God damn it.